Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are looking at the Istanbul class starship here for the United Federation of Planets. Now, I've got a couple different tabs to kind of go through. We'll see how this all works out. Hopefully, it works out pretty good. Now, starting off here with Daystrom. Um, we don't have all that much really in any information here. And some of the things I really wanted to kind of go off of. Now, I've got this from the advanced Starship database and all that. Um, and we'll get into that. And I do have some stats for it. And, please do take these always with a grain of salt. And if you're doing this as a role playing game, please always change whatever you need to change. This is just me coming up with it, and always take that for a grain of salt as well. Okay, so what we know for sure, this is from the Prime Timeline Istanbul class transport starship. We have the USS, um, I'm going to mess this up, Constantinople, USS Havana, and USS Sarajevo. Okay, now there's been 109 other starships have been built. 56 of them have been lost in all. We don't have much information here outside of what we have listed for Daystrom's website. Now, moving on over to the next one, we do have from memory beta. And all they really have is Istanbul class was a type of Federation starship used in the 24th century, primarily utilized as a transport vessel. Now, this is from the Star Trek Encyclopedia. That's a reference. And they have the Const- uh, Constantinople, the Sarajevo, Arcana, and Valletta. Kind of Spanish names that honestly, I'm probably murdering all of them. So that's what we have there. Now, then we get over to FASA. So this is from FASA when they had this. So oddly enough, people that are still keeping track of all the FASA stuff, here we have Istanbul 2 class 10 transport. This is the same picture that we have from Advanced Starship Design Bureau. Uh, and it's a nice looking ship as a transport style ship. Going through here, they're seeing that this was put into service. Date entering service is 2337. Mark II is 2361. Number constructed 68 of Mark I and 11 of Mark II. Structure points is 30 on each. Length, it's 340 meters long. Now, this is kind of nice because then I can add all this in here, which I did not have for my own D6. This really kind of helps a lot because if I have something to go off of, it's nice for me to be able to go off of that. Total SCU or cargo capacity at the SCU, whatever variant that really rounds out to being, I don't really know offhand, but it's 960. Now, cargo capacity, I think I have it about like 50,000 metric tons. This has got it listed at 48,000 metric tons. Pretty close. Now, landing capacity, none. Um, let's see, we have equipment. We have control computer listed as an M7 for the Mark 1 and an i6 for 2, which we don't really get into all that much of in the D6 universe. It just is not something that's typically listed. Now, transporters. So, in the write up that I have, and we'll get to this, it says that this is really used for emergency evacuations and the like. So, standard 6 person, it has 6 of them for both variants. Emergency 22 person transporters, there's 10 of them. And there's 8 cargo in the Mark 1 and 3 cargo in the Mark 2. Uh, Crew data, we have 293 for both. Passengers is 2,000. Shuttlecraft is 25. So I will have to change that as well. I will probably go through before we get this all finished, and I will add some of this in here because it's always nice having this information. All right, total power units active. They have 68 in Mark 1 and 90 in the Mark 2. Movement point ratio is 4 to 1 for Mark 1, 6 to 1 in Mark 2. And these are for the FASA version of Star Trek. So some of this is really going to pertain more for them than anywhere else, but it's interesting to see that we have some data here. Now, warp engine type is a FWG-1 for Mark 1 and FNWD 3A for the Mark 2. And there's two of them. I think that's same for the nacelles. Uh, Power units available, there's 26 for each for Mark 1 and 30 each for Mark 2. Stress chart DF for Mark 1, DE for 2. Max safe cruising speed is warp 8. Emergency speed is warp 10. This would take it from the old uh, version of it. Impulse engine being FIE 2 times 2 for the Mark 1 and a FLL or F11. I'm going to say FLL 1 times 2 for the Mark 2. Power units available is 8 each for Mark 1, 15 for Mark 2. Now, beam weapons, we have almost a similar type of weapons. We have the FH-15 and the FNH-15 for the Mark II. There's two of them, one forward, and we have one forward port, one forward starboard. In the Mark II, we have one forward port aft, uh, and one forward starboard aft for the Mark II. So I'm going to guess that we actually have the phaser arrays. So that gives it a forward and aft as well as being on the port and starboard side. Firing chart is a T for Mark 1 and W for Mark 2. The max power is 12 for Mark 1 and 15 for Mark 2. Now, damage modifiers, which doesn't mean a lot to me, but for those that play this in the FASA, we have a 1 to 5, then a 6 to 12, and 13 to 18 for the Mark 1. The Mark 2 is 1 to 7, 8 to 15, and 16 to 20 for the Mark 2. Now, the damage modifiers, the first range has got a +3, the second is a +2, and the third is a +1. So I'm going to guess that that's the extra amount of damage that it can do, but I could be wrong on that, seeing I have not played this in the FASO. So I'm a little ignorant on some of this. Now, we have deflector shields. We have the FSQ for the Mark 1, the FST for Mark 2. Shield point ratio is 1/4 for both, and max shield power for the Mark 1 is a 30, the Mark 2 is a 45. Now, combat efficiency, and then we have a D and a WDF. I don't know what those pertain to either. So as far as that goes, I really just don't know. But it is nice to be able to see this as a chart here to some degree and being able to go from there. Now, where I first found this, and that's what we'll move on over here, is the Advanced Starship Design Bureau. So it's approximately 340 meters. We do have that same nice picture layout that we have from FASA. They came up with a nice placard, USS Constantinople, Starfleet Registry, Istanbul class, launch star date, Cochrane Fleet Yards, Alpha Centauri, United Federation of Planets, and it's got, admirals and captains and so on and so forth listed there. These are nice, and they do those. I don't know who the guys are that are doing it. We have designed by Jason, 3D model by Robert Croswell. I think it's their own personal website that they're doing this stuff for, and they're doing a great job at coming up with ideas, and hats off to them for that. Now, the design history, which is where I've taken all this from. Now, the Istanbul class is Starfleet's dedicated emergency evacuation and transport vessel. It remains the largest Federation starship capable of planetfall. Though no longer in a production vessel, some 208 vessels are in service. The having run um, classes run having begun in the late 2320s, equipped with a large scale transporters, heavy impulse only shuttles, and the ability to land on and take off from a planet's surface. The Istanbul class is expected to be in service for many years to come. Indeed, following the dramatic rescue of several hundred civilians by the USS Marquisha during the Dominion War, some have speculated that a renewed construction contract may be in the Starship's future. So here we are. Now we have first sketches of this. Um, I don't know where they had taken this from or how this all came about, but it's an interesting concept. And then, of course, then we have a 3D model of this ship. And it looks good. Now, this looks like it was done back in 2001. I don't know when everyone else was getting licensing in 2001 for who had it, whether it was Last Unicorn Games or if Fazza still had it. Trying to remember 2001 who had what licensing and all that stuff. I really don't know offhand. I don't remember how well Fazza was doing at that time, being 24 years ago. Uh, my mind doesn't always keep track of all this stuff. And sometimes, because I'm getting older, sometimes it just seems like things were just yesterday, and here it is some 20 some years ago. Uh, but with all that being said, it is a great concept. And this is where I was kind of grabbing things from. Now, with that being said, my thought on this, looking at it and the time frame, put it about the same class as the Ambassador class. So when you look at the weapons, I really did a copy paste from what we have for the Ambassador class from the D6 Holocron. Um, Figuring that this, the Ambassador would have come first as the flagship for exploratory missions and everything else, and everyone doing a kind of, okay, well, this is what we have here. If we can grab that technology and put it onto something else for being a ship to be able to hold its own for some time to come. That's where I grabbed that idea from. So that's where we are. So with that, let's get on over. I'll make a couple quick changes here, and we will see where we sit for our D6 stats on this. All right, so looking at the Federation Istanbul class starship. This is going to be I've still got frigate in here. I didn't change that from where I grabbed the original to change things from. You know what? I think we'll leave that be for now. Capital scale, 340 meters long, 243 meters wide, and 74 meters tall. I didn't put in how many decks that would be. You figure kind of quickly here if I can do this. Um, as I'm trying to rush on something I was not thinking about. 74 meters. All right. And that's going to come down to about 18 and a half. So we'll round it up or whatever to 19 decks on board. Being about roughly 4 meters to a deck because you also have the flooring as well as Jeffrey's tubes and other things there. So typically, I remember from some of the construction books saying that you figure about 3 to 4 meters to a deck. I always took it on the 4 meter side because usually in the show they give us a little bit taller hallways and everything else. So with that being said, I always kind of give it a little extra. All right, ship mass comes roughly about 250,000 metric tons, being a size 6 starship here. Now, our autopilot is going to be a 2D plus 2, crew of 293, skeleton of 30 with a plus 10. I always take about, a 10% thereabouts. Now, the passengers rating here is about 2,000 for a ship of this size. Means that, you know, you could take more, but you're going to be kind of cramped. Like definitely emergencies, you can always fill it up with more, but you're really going to be short term. Cargo capacity, I knocked that down to the 48,000 metric tons. Consumables, now this was figured out roughly to be figuring 1.5 years. Um, Now I kept this in line with one of the other ships that was roughly about the same time frame. Standard warp speed is going to be 6, max rated is an 8. Max speed is 8, max rated is 8.4 for 6 hours. I figured that that would kind of do some justice here. Of course, we're going to have our nav computer. Maneuverability is going to be a +2. Our space is going to be an 8. And atmospheric speed is going to be 600 kilometers an hour. Keep in mind, this is one of the few ships that we actually have that for a capital scale, for the fact that its mission parameters would really dictate that it should. Trying to get refugees out or down spacecraft or what have you, they may need to do that. All right, hull. I have it at a 4D, and shields is a 1D +2. Given it a little bit of resilience here and all that, kind of going from that point. Now, our sensor packet passively out to 4 kilometers at a 1D +1 bonus, an active scan out to 12 kilometers with a 2D bonus, an active search out to 15 kilometers with a 3D bonus, and a focus out to 500 meters at a 3D +2 bonus. All right, getting to the fun stuff here. We have our weapon systems. Now, when I was kind of coming up with this, if this is more the pinpoint, kind of like what we've seen in the past, keeping things a little simpler, we're going to have two phaser, well, it says phaser arrays, two in the front, two in the back, is what it really comes down to. Um, Kind of like a port and starboard, kind of going from there. Um, we have one shot on each. Damage is going to be 3D. So, kind of go from there. Now, our photon torpedo tubes, we have one fore and one aft. Um, Damage is going to be 4D, and it's only going to have 12 torpedoes total. And it's going to have a slow reload because this isn't meant for combat. It's, just to kind of help defend itself, but not really meant for prolonged combat at all. Has a nice tough hull to try and get it out of the situations, and hopefully it can outrun it. But beyond that, that's really about it. Now, transporters. Now, this is where I didn't do it the best justice at first, but I think we have it. We have 8 personnel transporters with a capacity for 6 persons, 10 emergency for 22-person beam outs, and we have 8 cargo transporters for 800 kilograms. Now, complement, like it was stated before, we do have room for 25 shuttlecraft and 2 shuttle pods and 40 probes. And I left the probes from whatever other ship I had grabbed it from, figuring that that would probably be okay. Um, if they're trying to get, whatever information or whatever, that's one thing. Sometimes I think a ship like this might get used for scientific excursions or whatever, because I don't think we're trying to evacuate planets or lost ships and all that on a routine basis. So it might get turned into another ship that might either house specialized scientific shuttles or do some sort of scientific missions of its own. Most likely, I could see a lot of shuttles being based off of this, using it kind of as a carrier in a sense to try and help facilitate that, um, giving it a broader range without having to really do any changes to the ship itself. If we can have like a specialized runabout for doing whatever scientific experiments or studies that they need to do, but yet still trying to have a bigger ship so that way um, they can accomplish other goals along the way. So, you know, just trying to get a good grasp of it. And hopefully, I think I did a good job here. So, with that being said, hopefully you guys are enjoying having these other ships that we don't typically get to see, whether we find them from one source or another. It was really kind of nice to be able to stumble upon this from FASA, seeing that people had a love from the old FASA role playing game. I don't know if you're able to pick that up for free or not. That's why I keep with the West End games D6, because you can get it for free. I'm not asking anyone to give me money or anything else. This is all just for fun and enjoyment and all that. And we just go from there. So, as I was saying, thank you so very much for joining me today. It's always wonderful having you here. I hope you're doing well, and I will see you in the next video.